Listen closely, because what I'm about to walk you through is unsettling, and it's important that you really absorb it. There's a specific turning point where a person stops just being toxic or difficult and becomes something closer to destruction itself. When a narcissist stops fighting their worst impulses, when they throw out any remaining sense of right and wrong, and when they start welcoming cruelty rather than resisting it, that's the moment they cross into territory most people don't even know exists. Stay with me on this. Most people picture evil as something abstract, something that only lives in movies or old stories. But it's not abstract at all. It's real, and it moves through people. It creeps in slowly, tempting them, pulling at them, taking over piece by piece until there's no resistance left. Narcissists make an almost perfect host for this kind of transformation because their entire existence already revolves around deception, manipulation, and an insatiable need for control. It's worth pausing here because this isn't a claim you're meant to just accept and move past. Think about what it actually takes for a person to arrive at a place like this. Nobody starts out fully consumed. It happens gradually. One small compromise at a time, one lie that goes unchallenged, one manipulation that works a little too well. Each time it succeeds, it becomes easier to reach for again. Each time nobody calls it out, the boundary shifts a little further. That's how a person ends up somewhere they probably never intended to go. And it's also why, by the time you're standing across from someone who has fully arrived there, there's no version of them left that remembers how to turn back. Here's what you need to understand clearly. This isn't just about arrogance or self-centeredness or ordinary selfishness. This goes far past that. This is something much darker and much more dangerous. When a narcissist reaches the point where they finally let go of whatever humanity they once carried, three unmistakable signs start to show up. These aren't quirky personality traits. These aren't harmless habits you can shrug off. These are serious warning signs. Loud alarms telling you something genuinely dark has taken hold. If you miss them, or worse, if you choose to ignore them, you're walking straight into the reach of someone who has stopped being able to control themselves, someone who has traded whatever humanity they had left for something much worse. Think about this for a second. Have you ever been around someone who seems to drain every bit of energy out of a room the moment they walk in? Someone who almost feeds off other people's pain, growing stronger the more someone else is hurting? Someone whose manipulation is so calculated and precise it feels almost mechanical, like watching a machine rather than a person. That's not ordinary dysfunction. That's not just someone having a bad personality. That's someone who has gone well past any reasonable limit. And here's the hard truth about it. Once they cross that particular line, they don't come back from it. You can't reason with them. You can't talk any sense into them. You certainly can't save them, because saving them was never something they wanted in the first place. They've chosen lies over truth, chosen destruction over any kind of growth, and chosen power over anything resembling love. If you let someone like this into your life, if you get pulled into their games, or if you convince yourself you can outsmart them at their own strategy, you're putting yourself in real danger. So pay attention, because I'm going to walk you through 3 chilling signs that tell you a narcissist has fully surrendered themselves to this darker version of who they are. If even one of these shows up in someone close to you, that's your cue to leave. Walk away, get out, and protect yourself. You are not dealing with someone who's simply going through a rough patch or who just needs support. You're dealing with something far more dangerous than that. There was a time when they hid behind a mask, pretending to be decent. There was a time they worked hard to convince everyone around them that they were caring, that they had feelings, that some flicker of humanity still lived inside them. That time has passed. Because once a narcissist fully gives themselves over to this darkness, they stop just causing pain by accident or as a side effect. They start to genuinely enjoy it. And that's exactly where the real nightmare begins. At first, the shift is subtle. You start noticing small changes in how they carry themselves. They don't just argue with you anymore. They mock you outright. They don't just deceive you. They seem to relish the chaos their lies create. There's an eerie kind of satisfaction that flickers across their face when they watch someone unravel, a smile when sadness enters the room, a spark of excitement the moment they realize they've shattered someone's confidence or made them question their own sanity. Most people who hurt others do it out of anger, fear, or being overwhelmed in a weak moment. These people hurt others because they choose to. It feeds something in them. Other people's suffering hands them a kind of power that nothing else can replicate. That's how you know you're no longer looking at a personality flaw, you're watching something far darker at work. Pay attention to their expression the next time they humiliate someone, the next time they lie just to make you doubt your own mind, or the next time they deliberately wound someone's feelings. Do they show any hint of remorse? Do they seem torn or uneasy about it at all? Or do they look entertained? Does something light up behind their eyes with a twisted sense of satisfaction? Do they lean in, almost eager to witness the emotional wreckage they've caused? If that's what you're seeing, you're no longer dealing with someone who still has a functioning conscience. You're dealing with someone who has chosen, deliberately, to set it aside. And here's what makes all of this even more disturbing. This behavior isn't reserved for people they dislike. That would almost be understandable. No, they do it to everyone. Friends, family, romantic partners, even their own children aren't exempt. In fact, the closer someone is to them, the more satisfying it seems to be when they break that person down. That's exactly why nothing you offer them is ever enough. You can hand over your loyalty, your love, your effort, your entire devotion, and none of it will satisfy them. They will still want to see you suffer because in their mind, pain works like currency. Power gets measured by how much damage they're able to inflict. If they can break you, confuse you, and make you question what's real, they consider that a win. And here's the truly horrifying part. They'll do it again and again. There's no stopping point built into this. There's no moment where they pause and think they've finally gone too far. That moment simply never comes. This is part of what makes loving someone like this so exhausting to try to understand from the outside. Most relationships operate on some version of an unspoken exchange. You give, they give something back, even imperfectly. But this dynamic doesn't run on that logic at all. There is no ledger being balanced, no threshold of loyalty or sacrifice that finally satisfies the need underneath. You could spend years bending yourself into whatever shape you think might finally be enough, and you would still come up short, not because you failed, but because the goal was never actually about being satisfied. The goal was the chase itself, the ongoing proof of control. So, watch closely, watch their face, watch the way a smile creeps in when someone else is in pain. Watch for that darkness that flashes across their eyes right after they've caused real damage. None of that is normal. None of that reflects typical human behavior. And if you're holding on to hope that they'll eventually change, that one day guilt or shame will finally catch up with them, you're mistaken. They used to at least try to cover their lies. They used to construct stories laced with just enough truth to make you second guess yourself. Now they don't even bother hiding anything. They no longer need to. They've reached a point where reality simply becomes whatever they decide to say it is in that exact moment. They lie constantly, without fear, without hesitation, without a flicker of guilt anywhere in sight. And the most terrifying detail of all is that they actually believe their own lies. You could lay undeniable proof directly in front of them. Written records, hard facts, credible witnesses, none of it would matter. They'll look you dead in the eye and insist it never happened. They'll tell you you're wrong. They'll tell you that you're the actual problem. And they'll say it with such conviction, such total certainty, that for a brief moment, you might genuinely start doubting your own memory. That's how deep this manipulation runs. That's how powerful it becomes once it fully takes hold. This isn't ordinary lying anymore. This is an attempt to rewrite reality itself. They alter the past as it's happening and expect you to simply accept the new version without question. And if you push back or refuse to go along with it, that's when they turn the entire situation against you. Suddenly, you're the unstable one, you're the liar, you're the person nobody should trust. They twist the narrative so smoothly, so effortlessly, that even people who witness the actual truth start doubting what they saw with their own eyes. That's how they seize control of the story. That's how they hold on to their power. They aren't just manipulating people anymore, they're manipulating reality itself. And the more they get away with it, the bolder they become. They start testing limits with lies so extreme, so obviously false, that you'd assume there's no way they could actually believe them, but they do. Or, if they don't, they force themselves to. Because once a narcissist reaches this stage, truth stops mattering entirely. All that matters is whichever version of events benefits them most. This is where it gets genuinely disturbing. They don't just lie about what they've done, they lie about who they even are. Their whole identity becomes a performance. One day they're the victim, the misunderstood soul who suffered endlessly and been wronged by everyone around them. The next day they're the hero, the savior, the person who's always tried their hardest and always been right. They shift between these roles seamlessly, becoming whatever version earns them the most sympathy, praise, or leverage. And if you ever try to expose them, brace yourself because they will come after you before they let that happen. They'll turn people against you. They'll build an entire story where you're painted as the liar, the manipulator, the unstable one. The most painful part of all this is that most people will believe them. By the time you finally find the courage to speak up, they've already planted seeds of doubt, already spread their version of events, already rewritten the past in everyone's minds. And once their version of reality settles into how others see things, there's almost nothing left you can do to undo it. In the beginning, they went through the motions of caring about you. They mimicked human emotion convincingly, playing the part of someone capable of guilt or regret. They acted sorry for the things they'd done, but all of that performance is gone now. There's no hesitation left, no second guessing, no trace of a moral compass anywhere. They hurt people, betray them, and wreck lives while feeling essentially nothing. Watch them closely. When ordinary people cause harm, that harm tends to stay with them somehow. They might deny it or rationalize it away, but somewhere underneath, something inside them knows the truth. It keeps them up at night. It makes them wonder if they crossed a line they shouldn't have. But for a narcissist who has fully surrendered to this darker version of themselves, that internal check is completely gone. They don't lose sleep over the pain they cause. They don't hesitate before striking. They don't question their own motives, not even for a second. They simply take what they want, break whoever gets in their way, and move on with their lives as if none of it ever happened. If you try to confront them, if you try to make them see the damage they've caused, they'll either look at you with total indifference, unmoved by your pain, or worse, they'll smirk, genuinely amused that you still believe they have a conscience or that you think they're even capable of feeling regret. They'll watch you cry. They'll watch you fall apart. And the only thing they'll feel in that moment is satisfaction. In their mind, your pain means they've won. What makes this even more dangerous is that they're no longer restrained by the natural limits that keep most people from causing serious harm. The fear of consequences has disappeared entirely. The shame that would normally come with being exposed doesn't exist for them anymore. The weight of guilt is simply absent. That's exactly why they escalate over time. That's why the damage they cause keeps growing. Their betrayals become more severe and more damaging because there's nothing internal left to slow them down. They break trust without a second thought, manipulate people without hesitation, and destroy reputations without a shred of remorse. They steal, cheat, lie, and burn every bridge they touch, not because they have to, but simply because they want to. They find power in destruction itself, and every time they get away with it, they feel a little more untouchable than before. Here's the terrifying truth about people at this level. They genuinely don't care who gets hurt in the process. It doesn't matter if you've been a loyal friend, a devoted partner, an innocent child, or a protective parent. If you're standing in the way of what they want, you'll be sacrificed without hesitation. If destroying you gives them any advantage at all, that decision has already been made in their mind before you even know it's happening. They'll look you straight in the eyes and tell you they love you. And in that very same breath, they'll be quietly planning your downfall without a flicker of guilt. To them, life is nothing more than a game or a chaotic battlefield where there are only winners and losers, and they'll do absolutely anything to make sure they never end up on the losing side. When someone has no guilt left, no regret, and effectively no heart, nothing stays off limits. At this point, they're not just manipulating people on a basic level anymore. They're manipulating reality itself. Their grip on you stops feeling purely emotional or psychological. It starts feeling almost impossible to explain, as though they've genuinely learned how to bend perception and twist the truth right in front of everyone's eyes. They pull the strings of the people around them with unsettling precision. They don't lie casually or react on impulse. Every word is calculated. Every move, every pause, every silence, every delay, all of it is engineered to steer people toward whatever outcome they've already decided on. The scariest part of the entire process is that most people never even notice it happening until it's far too late. It starts small, a subtle shift in tone, a certain look, a perfectly timed pause in conversation. They know exactly how to make you second-guess yourself and doubt your own thoughts. They drop ideas slowly over time, plant subtle hints, and leave just enough uncertainty hanging in the air to make you wonder whether your own instincts have failed you. Once they've gotten you to question your own perception, They've achieved complete control because now they own the entire narrative. It doesn't stop at words either. They control the entire atmosphere of a room. Walk into a space with someone like this, and you can feel it immediately. Their presence dominates the environment even when they're saying absolutely nothing. They steer conversations with a single glance. They can make someone feel utterly worthless with a look, or make someone feel powerful and important with a perfectly timed compliment. They don't just understand how people think, they weaponize that understanding. What makes it even worse is how skillfully they engineer your dependence on them for validation. They create chaos in your life, chipping away at you piece by piece, and then step in acting like the only source of comfort and safety you have left. One moment they've pushed you right to your breaking point, and the very next moment they're playing the hero, acting as though they're the only one capable of fixing the very damage they caused. This isn't simple manipulation anymore. This is psychological entrapment. They play people against each other with unsettling ease. They whisper half-truths, plant seeds of doubt, and let them quietly spread and take root, poisoning relationships from the inside out. Before you even realize what's happening, they've turned your closest friends into strangers and your partners into rivals, all while sitting back and watching the fallout unfold, completely at ease. And when everything eventually collapses, they position themselves as the victim, or the misunderstood one everyone else turns to for guidance and answers. If you think you can outplay them at their own game, think again. While you're still reacting to their last move, they're already several steps further ahead. While you're busy explaining yourself to other people, they're already constructing their next lie. They don't play fair, and they don't follow the rules everyone else lives by. They invent new rules as they go, and the very moment you think you finally understand them, they change the entire game. They aren't just manipulators, they're architects of illusion. They don't simply lie to your face, they reshape reality itself to match whatever twisted version of the truth suits them best. Once they've pulled you deep enough into that web, once the story has been rewritten so many times that you genuinely can't distinguish what's real from what isn't, that's when they know they fully own you. That's when their control over your life becomes complete. There was a time in the past when they pretended to be good people. They wore a convincing mask of morality and acted as though honesty, decency, and truth actually meant something to them. They said all the right words and played the part of someone who genuinely cared about doing right by others. Those days are long gone. Now they don't just quietly reject goodness, they openly mock it. They don't merely dismiss faith, they hold contempt for it. Pay close attention to how they speak, how they act, and how they react to anything sincere or meaningful. They don't just avoid the truth, they attack it directly. They ridicule people who try to live with integrity. They laugh at anyone genuinely attempting to do the right thing. They tear down people who believe in honesty, love, or faith, because deep down, the truth reveals exactly who they really are. Faith reminds them of everything they can never become. And goodness holds up a mirror they simply can't bring themselves to look into. So instead of confronting that reality, they try to destroy it. Instead of working on themselves, they try to corrupt everything and everyone around them. Watch them the next time someone brings up honor, love, responsibility, or truth. Watch for the eye roll, the sneer of disgust. Genuine goodness irritates them at their core. They can't stand being anywhere near something pure because it exposes just how hollow and broken they really are underneath. Rather than trying to grow or become better people, they'd rather tear everything down around them. They'd rather drag everyone else into the same darkness they live in than admit that light exists at all. They laugh off the idea of ever being held accountable. They mock the concept of facing real consequences. They dismiss any notion of a higher power seeing straight through their lies. They act completely untouchable, as though they answer to absolutely no one, as though they've become their own gods. That's the moment you know they've crossed into genuinely dangerous territory. When someone truly believes they're above accountability altogether, there is nothing they won't do to get exactly what they want. Here's the truly chilling part of this whole transformation. They don't just abandon goodness within themselves, they actively work to destroy it in the people around them too. They'll test you constantly. They'll push against your boundaries, pressure you into compromising your core values, mock the things you believe in, and try to make you feel foolish for even having principles in the first place. They want to see you break under that pressure, because the weaker you become, the more power they gain over you. The instant you stand firm and refuse to give in to their demands, you'll finally see who they really are underneath. the charm vanishes instantly. The mask slips off entirely, and what's left underneath is something cold, bitter, and openly hostile toward anything resembling goodness. They'll explode into rage, not because they're strong, but because they simply cannot tolerate anything they can't control or destroy. That's the exact moment you realize you're no longer dealing with a difficult person. You're dealing with something considerably darker. There's something deeply unsettling about their presence, something you'll feel long before you can even put it into words. It isn't just about what they say or what they do to you directly. It's about the specific energy they carry with them into every room they enter. It feels heavy, it feels draining, it feels genuinely hard to breathe when they're standing close to you. Being near them is like walking through thick fog, where your thoughts feel scattered and your inner strength feels weighed down by something you can't quite name. This isn't a coincidence, and it's definitely not something you're imagining. If any of this sounds familiar, if you've been reading through this and quietly recognizing someone in your own life, trust that recognition. People who live through this kind of dynamic often spend a long time doubting their own read on the situation, wondering if they're overreacting or being unfair. But the discomfort you feel around someone like this is information. It's your own instincts trying to tell you something your conscious mind hasn't fully caught up to yet. You don't need a diagnosis, a confession, or anyone else's permission to trust what your body has been telling you the entire time. Protecting yourself doesn't require you to win the argument or prove your case to them first. It only requires you to believe what you've already seen with your own eyes.